What's going on, Real Estate Virgins podcast? Welcome back. If you're returning, if this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're tuning in, it's most likely because you're looking to elevate your business in the year 2023. That's what this whole thing is about sharing experiences, stories, the ups and the downs of real estate, and that's what we're here for. My name is Jordan Brown. My co-host, John Michael Perez, is currently out of office and coming back here in a little bit. Really excited for this episode. We've been coming out with some bangers recently. We had Suman Kim, who was, $144 million producer in his second year. Absolutely insane numbers that he's pushing. And today, we're honored to have Matt Teifke, who is kind of just a mogul himself. I mean, this guy is, he was rookie of the year when he started in real estate. He's an entrepreneur, entrepreneur here at TRE, which is the brokerage that John Michael and I are a part of. Investor, has over 94, 95 doors.
Yeah, 95 if you count like mobile home units. Like we have one 14-unit mobile home park, so I'd count that as 14.
There we go.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, super excited for y'all to hear from him because he brings so many different perspectives to what real estate is about. One of the things that, when Matt and I, when I was interviewing with Matt about if TRE was going to be a destination for me, one thing that really caught me was you said real estate is for everybody. And your aim is to empower not just the people that we help, but realtors themselves to be able to advance themselves in life through real estate. So how did that start for you? Like, I'd love for people to get to know who Matt is. Tell us about your background. We're going to dive into like the philosophy and everything. But I'm really interested in finding out, what was your background like? What was your first job? How'd you get into real estate and so on?
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. You guys have a great podcast, and I really believe that to the core. I'll jump into it, but I was with people last night that are in the service industry, and I'm like, you gotta own real estate. I really believe that. And for me, it started with my mom. So my mom moved here. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and I moved here when I was 3 years old. And single mom, raising two boys, literally was cleaning houses. She started substitute teaching, and by the time I was 16, I think she had 12 or 13 rental properties.
Jeez.
So that was the big thing for me. Is I tell people that I feel very blessed that two things. I was able to see what's required to do that, and also what it looks like. Because we grew up, my mom was always networking, talking to people. She'd tell people she had these houses, and I'd kind of like maybe even get a little embarrassed of like, oh, like it just sounds like I'm like this rich kid, right? And trust me, like we definitely had some things. But I was able to see that her owning these properties didn't mean that she was making money every month. Like, she had to hustle, she had to grind. There were times that she was trying to figure out how to pay the taxes. So I was able to see that, one, it's possible, and two, what it looks like. And that's everybody can do this. Is I don't see how my mom would have changed her life or me and my brother's life without owning real estate. Like, she wasn't going to be this high-powered attorney. She wasn't going to, create an app. But she could buy one property a year, and markets change, right? Every market's a little different. But back then, you could buy houses in Round Rock or Austin for $150, $160. And so I believe if you have a job and you work hard, I mean, there are always exceptions. And I don't want to say that it's all just work hard, but a lot of it is, obviously. But I believe that most people can save up $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year if they really dedicate to that goal. And it's freaking hard, right?
Yeah, it's got to be a priority. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
It's hard, right? And my mom did it as a single mom. She would just save that money. She'd buy a house. 8 months later, she'd buy a house. And so I was just very blessed to see how that was done. And that's what I grew up around, right? And I was working all kinds of jobs. I worked at Bush's Chicken. I worked at Wingstop. And I just remember, one night I was mopping the floor and I just was going crazy looking at the clock. And I just came to the conclusion that this is what I would just fight. I said this the other day, and I heard it somewhere else, but people that work a job they fight to never lose it, and entrepreneurs fight to never have one.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so it was really that clock. And then seeing my mom being blessed, and I just wanted to do everything that I possibly could to not look at a clock.
Shout out to Mama Kim, man. What a great example. And I love that you said that you got to see not just the good parts. You got to see like some of the struggle where it was, how am I going to pay for the taxes? Like,
Yeah.
And these are all very real things that happen. Like John and I have some interesting stories about our investment properties where at the time everyone thinks if you own something or like if you own real estate, like everything's going to go smoothly, or like, oh, you get rich. And it's like, no, like shit goes wrong sometimes.
Yeah, most of the time.
And you've got to adapt, and you got to roll with the punches and figure it out.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the biggest things for me is I feel like when I said most time or all the time, owning real estate, in my opinion, is never easy, but it forces you to sacrifice, to struggle, to save up, and then you never regret it. Right. And you just, stocks and other things, they just kind of just hit and miss. But like, if you can figure out how to keep this asset, and I've had so many friends, I had one last night that I was talking to that, dude, one of my buddies bought a house for like $230. 4 years later, we sold, before the market went crazy, we sold it for like $380. And I kept telling him, dude, don't sell. And I, at the time, was doing pretty good. And I said, why do you have to sell? I was like, I need $60K. I need this or that. I was like, dude, I'll give it to you. And I'll be a partner with you. Please don't sell.
Right.
And he told me last night, he's like, I just thought that you were in real estate, that you'd be like getting this better deal, and it just didn't feel comfortable. He's like, I totally regret it.
Oh, so he wound up selling it.
He did sell it. Yeah, he sold it, and then that was before things went great, like literally like right before. And you can never time things exactly, because now it's probably worth a little bit less than that peak. But I'm just a big believer that it's almost just like this really hardcore savings account on steroids.
yeah.
And it's never going to be easy, at least for me. Like, you got to figure out how to keep them depending on where you're at, Austin, Texas, or a place where the property values are higher. It just forces you to put that money there, figure out how to keep it, and then you never regret it.
Yeah. Did you talk about that recent article that came out?
Not yet. We're just going over his background, like what he did before real estate, just getting to know who Matt is. I noticed that you said you worked at like Bush Chicken and Wingstop, and so what was the transition into real estate like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that was part of my background, I grew up playing baseball, and I was always a super hard worker. I wasn't the most talented, but I played catcher, and I just tried really hard, And so that mentality, it's a small example, but I played baseball my whole life. My freshman year of high school, I didn't make the team, and I was just crushed. And then I came up with this to myself. I'm like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make the team next year. And I did. And I made the team. And it just validates, like, man, if you really want something bad enough, I believe, like, you can go get it.
And if you're willing to put in that work.
Yeah. And it was hardcore, dude, running sprints, but it's such a good thing to accomplish, like a real goal. And it meant something, like, still to this day, that was like a special moment.
Well, it was a learning lesson. I mean, you had that burning desire within you that was like, I'm never going to fail and not make the team. So I'm going to do every single thing that I can do to make the team.
Yeah, everything possible.
Yeah.
So how did real estate get brought up as far as like a possible career path?
Yeah, I mean, it was my mom. And to your question earlier, I was working at Papa John's, delivering pizzas, and I got my first call. I got my license too. I got my first call. I closed the deal. It was maybe $7,000-8,000. At the time, I was getting $400 or $500 a week at Papa John's, and I got that check, and it just blew my mind.
I feel like a lot of times new agents, we talked about this before, where a lot of agents aren't thinking long term about real estate as a career. It's trying to get that first sale to validate what you just went through, to be like, look, I did it.
That's a good point.
And a lot of that is so true. I remember my first big check and being like, holy hell, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I just made that for doing like this work. That's insane. Like, and I make this in a month or whatever at my other job.
Yeah.
So that kind of reality where this uncapped potential for however much you want to put in is what you're going to get out is really enticing for a lot of people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of risk in what we do. Like nothing's really guaranteed until you kind of see it click. Then you do realize like the results follow the work. But when you're first getting started, and it's been 6 months, you're just unsure and you don't know how it works or that it will work, and so it just, I don't know, people are like just skeptical or questioning themselves. And once you see it work, the second, third, fourth, I can just keep. And even now, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you're like, I don't know where my next deal is going to come from. But it always just kind of comes.
Yeah.
And you just kind of keep going.
As long as you're doing the right things, I think that's the big part. We talk about consistency. We talk about like navigating through like changing landscapes. John and I talk about it. You have to have, if you're making video or content, it has to be targeted at who you're trying to attract. If it's a buyer's market, don't make a bunch of listing videos.
Right.
Make buyer videos.
Yeah.
You're going to attract what you put out.
Absolutely.
Because that's what your audience is tuning into. We do that a lot. We try to be really focused on where's the market going, who needs to hear what message, and attracting that kind of business. And it's always worked out for us because same thing. I will go through, like I had a really killer March, and then like my April was looking really dry and I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? Like I get a contract, and then all of a sudden, like I have a business. I have a meetup later with a buyer. I've got one that's going under contract tomorrow. Like things will happen. Do the right things, and the results will happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And the thing is that a lot of agents were doing those things and seeing a lot more results within the last couple of years, and then they're doing those same things and seeing less results now that the market has shifted. And the reality is now you've got to double down on those same activities that you were doing to get the same results that you had, the last few years. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to work as hard. Well, get over it, because unfortunately, you're not going to get the same results.
Yeah, you got to manage your expectations. It's got to be a very clear thing. Because, for example, a lot of houses, if you sold one house a year and a half ago, you were probably, the sales price was probably $100K more than what it is right now. Yeah. And so that is a big part of your commission being wiped away just because home values are fluctuating. You have to say, okay, if home prices are going down that drastically, I have to sell X amount more to make the same money.
Right.
So just staying on top of that, being in tune with your market's really important. Tell us about becoming a broker. I mean, how did you go from, were you a real estate agent first and then, I mean, obviously, yeah, you have to, but
yeah,
like, tell us about that transition. When were you sitting there going, I want to be a broker?
Yeah. Day one.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goal really was, I want to, essentially I looked at it as I would take over my mom's properties and I would kind of grow that, and that would be like the family business. Never really ended up doing that at all. We manage her properties, and I still think back and I wonder if I would have just, looked at this portfolio and just analyzed which ones were good and which ones aren't, and just trade it up constantly. Probably could have done pretty good with that, but that's just not the path that I took. My mom also, I don't think she wanted to take a lot of risk because she had her little deal, and they're all going to be paid off, and just leave that alone. So,
does she still own those, or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And I think she's got maybe 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of them were paid off.
Oh.
Ooh, that's straight equity, baby.
Yeah. And that was 25 years in the works, right?
Yeah.
And single mom. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I point to is raising me and my brother. And I still don't really understand it, but she did it, right? What was the question? I apologize.
What was the whenever you identified that you wanted to be a broker, and like what that transition was like? How was it getting started?
Yeah, so that was always the goal. Is I wanted to be an investor, but I wanted to get my license. And at the time, I was like, I want to be the best at this. And I was literally thinking in my head, I don't want anybody at 17 years old or 18 years old to be doing what I'm doing today towards my real estate career. And I always had that mentality, but like in sports, and it's not an excuse, but like I would try really, really hard. And I just didn't have the talent. But in business and in real estate, you're like, you literally can. Like, it's just, if I just commit to this knowledge, if I ask all these questions, if I'm showing these houses. I get rookie of the year. All right, next year if I do this, and then that was always the goal, just be the best. But my game plan was to learn how to help other people buy and sell real estate, and then do it myself. And that was literally the whole deal. And then just being a broker. Also at the time, I was in Corpus where I went to college. I was on 50-50 split, and second year was 60-40. And in my opinion, like that kind of is what the market was back then. There's probably some of what we have now, but not nearly the same. Like it was like 70-30. There was no like flat fees or 90-10s and all this stuff. And so I was like, dude, if I get 10 agents that work with me, that's all I'll ever need. 50-50, I'll be good. Right. So it was like I could build this brokerage, but then I'll be an investor myself. And yeah, I mean, I worked at, I tried to work at every aspect of real estate that I could think of. So when I graduated, I worked for Don Quick in Round Rock, and I was studying, and I met Don. He was kind of a legend here, local. And I sat down with him every morning, 7 a.m. And when you find people like that see you're committed and serious, they kind of like doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, nobody's soaking in this. I'm just asking questions. I'm just getting so far ahead of my competition in a sense. Went to College Station, master's degree in real estate. I worked at an apartment doing leasing. Got an appraiser's license. I did that for about 6 months. And then I was working at a property management company, and then came back and worked for a retail brokerage called Edge. And that was a trip, dude. That was top of Bank of America building. You dress a certain way every day. Wine and dine clients, just big money. You know, my company would throw these events that were like $200,000-$300,000 parties.
Wow.
Yeah, like
That is not a small number.
yeah, like we were known to have these parties, and it was such a different world for me. It wasn't who I was to my core, but I just knew that I needed to see it and to learn it and to be around it. And then 3 years in, like our business with property management was just too much for my wife to handle, so I had to help her. But I was just trying to soak in just from everywhere, and to get to a point where, and I feel this now, is I can be in the room with anybody and talk real estate and figure out some kind of way to contribute or speak the same language or add value. And then you get this confidence that you should be in the room. Like you can bring something to the table. And I would encourage new agents to think like that. And you might be intimidated up front, but you've got to get to that point. Like if you don't feel confident and someone's talking real estate and you're in the room, like, dude, that would suck, right? You like that. Now you're working from a place of insecurity, and you just can't be doing that in this business. And there's no reason that you can't get to that point.
That makes a lot of sense, where you have the opportunities to learn all kinds of different facets of this business. And it's just whether you want to do that or not.
Yeah.
And I love that you said you felt confident no matter what the conversation sounded like. And that's because of your experience and putting yourself out there. And
well, he also said he felt confident because he could always figure out a way to help, you know, and that's huge, because a lot of people, when they're in those rooms with people that have more experience than them, they're thinking about like, what do I have to contribute?
Yeah.
Or what can they do for me?
you almost get like imposter syndrome.
Yeah. It's bad. It's really bad. That's what I'm saying. Like I really hope people would like take that to heart of like, you don't have to do that. Right. Yeah. And even if, you know, you're not going to come to the table adding value, but you can ask good questions, like good questions, you know, not just really basic. And if you do that, they'll respect that too, because people want to pass on knowledge, but they don't really. If you ask someone a basic question, like, yeah, you just, you know, trying to hear yourself talk.
Yeah.
I mean,
you almost feel like you're trying to contribute, but like you're really not.
Yes.
You're like, hey, like, did you notice I just said something?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
John, you want to go over that article?
Yeah. So there was a recent Yahoo article that said that U.S. real estate investors are losing money on roughly 1 in 7 homes they sell, which is the worst since 2016. So,
how does that resonate with you?
Don't sell. I mean, if I were to sell properties that I have right now, I would lose too.
Yeah. I think that's important to know, is that the market does this. It goes up, it goes down. And we talk about how, like, I relate it to stocks, where stocks go up, they go down, and you don't lose anything unless you sell it.
Right.
And I think that the initial deal is so important now.
Yeah.
You know, when the market shifts, you have to be a little more cautious. You have to get creative with financing, which is another thing that I'm excited to talk with you about a little bit later.
No,
It's like different creative financing.
but you're right, man. And I started in 2012, and the market's been good ever since. So this is all new to me too, right? I mean, for a long time, at least here in Austin, it was kind of like if you're getting things done and you're doing deals, you're winning, because even that's hard to do. So we definitely were, looking back's easy to say we could have done things different, but like you just had to get things done. And now it's like, dang, some of those weren't sustainable. Like we were still to right now, and we had to figure it out, but we do these 6.5%, 7% interest only for 2 years hard money loans, and that was pretty good at the time. But now if we want to refi them, it's 8.5 or 9. It doesn't make sense. And if we want to sell it, we're going to sell it for like 30, 40, 50K lower than what we bought it for. So, you know, you just got to figure it out and roll with the punches, and maybe we're negative a little bit every month. And that's where I come back to, got to figure out how to just keep it. I just believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through a little bit of that ourselves with the property, and yeah,
We're still going through it.
Are you selling it, keeping it?
Well, we're gonna sell it just so that we can get some more capital for other things.
Sometimes you do have to cut some, for sure.
And it's cool because like we talked about the initial deal being important. We still have enough equity that even in a downturn market, you know, or this dip that we're experiencing, we padded ourselves enough cushion to still not lose out.
That's cool.
So it's still there, and it's still like, okay, we can maybe withdraw those funds and find a deal that works better for us because this one didn't work out the way that we wanted to. Now, granted, you know, we turned it into a rental. It did really well for us for a little while, and then it didn't.
Yeah.
You know, the Airbnb market kind of bottomed out for us in that area.
Yeah.
And we're adjusting.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's the thing with real estate is like, Matt, you always talk about being an entrepreneurial real estate agent, right? And so being the entrepreneur in real estate is you see these opportunities and then you take advantage of the opportunities when they're around, but they're not always going to be around, right? And so when you get in these situations where there's properties that unfortunately go down in value, now you've got to think, okay, what can I do? Do I Airbnb it?
Yeah.
Do I rent it out? Do I refinance it, take that cash out and, you know, buy another property? And that's the thing is there's so many agents out there that feel like they're only doing one of three things, right? But going back to the fact that if you can figure out a way to keep that property and the market has shifted so much, maybe you go out and represent more buyers and sellers so that you can
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly
for the house.
Yeah. That's it, dude. Maybe you go move into it and live there.
Yep.
yeah, that's a whole other part to it.
Rooms.
Yeah, like if you have a property, you can lease out yours, take over the payments at that, you know, that other house, and then you're mitigating the risk and you're minimizing the damages that are happening, which is a very real reality for investing, as it can happen. Like you know, both of our properties, like we missed the turn of the market by like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, from there, it seemed like it was just on a nosedive and we just could not catch a break. And so then we had to be like, okay, well, let's, since it's not selling, this was the first property. Since it's not selling, let's figure it out. What are we going to do to stop losing money? We Airbnb'd it, and it paid for itself for a little bit. And then we got an offer because our Airbnb stuff looked like it was staged. Yeah. You know, like little things like that helped make it sell. And it was good. I mean, I'm glad that we got the deal done, and we're still kind of working on the second one.
And I'm sure that, I guess kind of on a side topic, but to add value for people that are new, I'm sure y'all would agree with this. You got to have someone, y'all are partners in a sense, right? Like y'all team up.
Absolutely.
I feel like you need that because it's hard, man. And you're like, dude, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How are we going to make this happen? To think about doing that on your own, that really,
oh yeah,
that's too much.
The only reason I even have this opportunity to learn these lessons is because John and I have partnered up. And I feel like the reason John has it is because you guys, you know, it's a chain of like continuing to give information and chances, and it's so important. I cannot imagine doing this on my own.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I didn't know anything about hard money.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about like the terms of that. I didn't know anything about the financials behind it. And now I've gotten the opportunity. Like, is every deal a home run? No, but those lessons are so important.
Yeah, dude.
And those are invaluable. Like, you cannot put a price tag of going through it and like shit going wrong and you just having to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, and that's where the wisdom comes from for, passing that on or getting it from other people is through those like hardcore experiences.
Because now we know for next time, right? Like now, like I said, the first property that we probably lost out on like maybe 75, 80K on what it would have been if we would have sold 5 weeks earlier.
We didn't lose 75 to 80K, but like the potential
of the potential of what we would have made was so much better.
Yeah.
But you don't like, we have the lessons now, and like we know like we're not immune to market turns, or that things can change this quickly, and like when there's certain warning signs, like maybe we need to listen to it a little bit better. Those kind of lessons you don't get unless you go through it. So with this kind of changing market, what's your approach been? Are you changing anything about how you identify deals? Like, what's your strategy looking like these days?
So I think everybody can find a niche, like, to figure out, you can try a lot of things, but for me, the niche that I found was just people, just constantly having a lot of people, a big network. And that's really how I figured out how to put things together. Richard, who works with TRE, older guy, sells $100 million deals. Like, I got him to come meet with me, and we started talking about how he approaches real estate. And you guys might find this valuable, and listeners too, but I've really gotten more into lately, like, understanding what's happening at a macro level. I was telling you about Tesla going to Robstown Robstown?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's there, right? And so, like, I've gotten really, really deep into why did they go here? Like, what else is happening? There's a rail line that goes through there. They got the plant in Austin. What else is going to come out here? And then you start to learn, like, you can go meet with the Economic Development Corporation, and they can talk to them about who's coming. You can meet with engineers. Who are they drawing up plans for? And you start to, on a very deep level, put a story together to try to stay ahead of the momentum of what's happening, right? And Richard knew that somehow Tesla was coming here before they did it. And so, like, I've gotten more into that lately. Like, we should all, as real estate professionals, have that into what we're doing. And then you realize that the information and knowledge is, like, sometimes you got to keep this stuff close. Like, that's the work that you're going out, and there's like little rumors you hear about, but you probably shouldn't tell anyone sometimes, because then you're going to miss out on those opportunities. So it's an interesting learning thing for me, because I'm big on value add, open book. But then when I've kind of been dealing in Corpus, you realize, like, people here don't really want to work with anybody. And there's maybe there's less opportunities, so they keep things closer to the vest, where Austin, they might approach it differently. And so just understanding the game, the players on a big level, what's happening. I think people, if you were to get a little bit more into that.
Are you saying people in the Corpus area keep things closer to the chest as compared to Austin?
It's a trip, dude.
Really?
Like, I mean, even being at a restaurant with some people, I was at a restaurant with this guy, and he's worth a lot of money. And he's like, when he would say things to me, he's like, kind of make sure no one was listening.
Interesting.
And he's like, and he goes, hey, that guy over there's a billionaire. That guy's a billionaire. That guy's worth like 200 million. And it's weird, because I'm not really about it. But at the same time, you start to learn, like, the knowledge and the information is very important. Like, I heard a rumor. I'll tell you guys offline.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty big one in Corpus. And I'm like, and I'm just telling y'all because y'all are bros to me, but like, I'm like, I wouldn't tell anybody else this, because if you did, it could literally ruin, if it were to happen.
Like an opportunity.
Yeah. Like the Tesla deal. Like, if you knew Tesla was coming here, I might have been like, dude, guys, Tesla's coming. Let's go buy. I still kind of feel like that. So I'll tell you what's happening in Corpus. But I don't know the answer, because I want to be open. I want to share. And I don't want to be that person that holds it. But you just learn like you got to be smart in this game, and you got to know who you can and can't trust, and it's hardcore at that level, you know.
Yeah. Like when you get it really deep into it, you almost have to have the nuance to know who you can tell, what you can tell,
Right.
when you can tell it,
Right.
because you could be showing your hand and you're gonna have to fold because someone else now has the upper hand on you.
Yeah, and it gets out, dude. If you were talking about like Tesla coming here, like everybody's gonna tell everybody quickly, and then that's gone. And then now, and if you knew where they were going, then all the land just doubled overnight.
Yep.
So, anyways, I just, you know, I'm big right now into like learning what's happening. Like Bastrop, they're doing that, you know, movie, HBO. Like, why are they going there? What do they know? What else is happening? Why is Elon going in Robstown? And there's a brand new highway that they just put in right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is he putting in tunnels? You know, Boring Company is like, are they going to have a whole new way to manufacture batteries? And now that whole area is going to change. And so that's, you know, I think it's always good to be doing the deals, you know, make money in and on real estate. But there's these big pops in this business that are right around the corner, and knowing that information and thinking of it from a deeper level, that's how you go make 50 million on a deal, 40 million on a deal, instead of just the 200, 300, 400, which is great. But those big deals are possible, even if you're brand new. You know, people might not have told you can do it, but you absolutely can.
Yeah, that's crazy. So take us back to one of the first deals that you've done, and how did you secure the deal? And you know, can you tell us about like the first investment deal you did?
Yeah, it was a condo in College Station that my aunt owned, and my cousin lived there, and she owner financed it to me. $58,000, 10% down. It's paying like $293 a month.
What?
Yeah,
Like all in?
yeah.
Wow.
And then I had to pay HOA fees, which were maybe $200. So that was really good, right? And then this is funny. I sold it to a guy that I met when I was leaving for maybe like $70,000, and he owner financed it for me, and he was paying me like $600 a month. And then I get an article in the news. He's in jail,
What?
like moving like a lot of drugs.
No way.
Like, you know, and he still makes payments for like the next 3 years from jail.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and I did the deal initially like a little bit of trust. Like I didn't necessarily know what I was doing, but I looked him in the eye. He gave me $15,000 down up front, and he made his payments for 3-4 years. And then 4 years later, he sells it for like $99,000. So like everybody made money. It was like,
Yeah.
and I still know him.
Really?
Yeah,
He's still selling drugs.
That's funny.
probably.
So I'd love to dive into the financing aspect. So a lot of times the barrier for a lot of agents or investors is money. It's securing financing, and it's just maybe a lack of knowledge. So explain like the kind of creative financing that you see. Like we've talked about hard money before. You know, you have your traditional, like, you know, conventional loans and all that. But like what other options are out there when you're an investor looking to get involved that you need to consider?
Yeah, great question. I also think that it's important to really understand how to actually get these loans and how hard it can be, even with the hard money loans. Like to know the basics about, you know, what down payment and what the interest rate and everything, that's valuable. But to really have gone and been in the trenches and to know like, oh, they're going to need this and this, and they're going to want to see this. And, you know, when we get to this point, whenever we think there's no solution, here's what we got to do, right? That's really, really important. And that's a competitive advantage to have, to be able to just get those deals done. Because getting the loans is not easy, right? Especially when you start owning a lot of properties and things get complicated. They're always going to like be trying to find a way, and you got to just figure out how to jump through these hoops. So that's really important, right? But then I love owner financing. I think there's all kinds of creative, I call it like levers. When you're dealing with owner financing, you have down payment, interest rate, time that payments due, amortization, balloon payment.
And this is all stuff that's negotiable within there, correct?
All of them, right? You can negotiate every single one of those things. And like a simple thing that I've talked about before, but I might be able to pay $100K higher than what you own this house. It's worth $300,000, and I might pay you $400,000 because you're going to give me no payments for 3 years and a 2% interest rate, and it's a win-win, and I get a good deal and you get a good deal. You can work with those things, and when you find someone who likes it, then you just start playing ball and you just get a deal done that way. So there's all these levers to pull, which is great, right? Subject to, you just take over the existing terms. With community banks, there's all different, usually they're 20, 25-year amortization, they're 5-year balloons, all different banks that you can use that with. Lines of credit, just pull money straight out, pay it back. But there's just always a solution. And it might be you have a partner. We did a deal where we got this, we told you about this, I think, but we got 60% of this deal completely for free of 3 duplexes because we figured out a problem to solve. And so just the creativity, understanding what options are available, having people in your corner that maybe you just give them, maybe you don't have any capital and this is back to being an entrepreneur, they put up all the capital and you keep 5% just for doing it. Like there's always something. There's always a solution.
Some kind of connection to make, something to plug in, something to provide there.
Dude, there really is. And especially now. And now's the time, the best time to be aggressive and to be asking these questions. And all kinds of people, my buddy last night, he's got an interest rate at 2.7 and he'd happily owner finance it at 5. And for a lot of people, that's great because rates are at 7 or 8. So that just getting in there, asking questions, taking notes, and I say go on a fact-finding mission to find out what challenges and problems that the other person has, and then just figure out how to present potential solutions and let them pick. Just let them pick.
Yeah, and I noticed that like owner financing is really popular. Like I've been seeing it pop up like on the MLS now, where I'm seeing people say like, "Hey, if you do 20% down, we'll do owner financing," which is something I hadn't seen before. So it's kind of interesting that this shift is kind of forcing people to get creative.
Dude, what's real? I showed my mother-in-law house 2 days ago, and right when we walk in, the broker's like, and it's like $1 million. No, it's like 1.9. And the broker's like, the owners wanted to let you know that they would be open to a trade. I was like, trade? He's like, yeah, they'd be willing to trade. If you have another property, they'd be willing to look at trading.
What?
And I'm like all about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that is a concept, but I'm like, I never heard someone just tell me that like that.
Just straight up.
I thought I'd be the one saying, would you trade?
I've got a holographic Charizard.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I wanna pick your brain on a couple of those, or one of those things was, owner financing is really cool. I've noticed that like Elliot is killing it with owner financing.
Yeah.
Like that, when we interviewed him, he has like 16 properties.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because he's finding the solution for these people, and the creative financing he's using is owner financing.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, he can make the terms work for both parties. Like you said, maybe the house is 300, but you can offer 400, and you're not going to feel the brunt of that 100K increase because of the terms.
Yeah.
So that's really creative. Subject to, give me an example of when a seller would want to do a subject to, financing option.
Sure. And I just want to point out, maybe y'all's deal, maybe you owner finance it.
I hadn't thought of that.
I don't know, if you have hard money or what the deal is, but there's things that you can put out there that.
How would you? Yeah. So we do have hard money on that. Could we We would.
Yeah. You'd want to be able to refi it when that time comes as a backup plan. But yeah, there's always a deal, right? Back to being creative. Like most people say, no, hard money, you can't do it. But there's always something. So how much are they going to put down? Maybe you give them, say your hard money expires in a year, right? And you just got to tell them, this is our deal. But we want you to put up this, and in 9 months, you have to refi so we can get out of this hard money. And if they can't, then you got to be prepared with a backup plan to, what are you going to do? But then you keep the down payment.